All right, everybody, welcome back into the Auburn Live Basketball Show. Appreciate everybody for joining us. A little special edition, Alan. So for people that are going to be listening to this, I guess on Monday morning, we're recording this live during the selection show.
Yes.
So it is 5 o'clock on Sunday. We're just going to go live for our purposes, and so we'll chat here for a few minutes before the show gets going, and then we'll react live to this bracket reveal as we see what happens with Auburn. Quick shout out, Session Cocktail, downtown Auburn, sponsor of the show, friend of AuburnLive.com. Go check them out right there on Magnolia. Great friends of the show. Happy hour 4 to 7. A great old fashioned. I've gotten into Bullet.
Oh,
Old fashioned. I guess everybody does it a little bit differently. But I've gotten into Bullet old fashioned lately. So go check them out when you get a chance downtown Auburn. If you're in for some baseball games or something like that this spring, go check them out. All right, before the selection show gets going, of course, it'll start, and then they'll probably talk a whole bunch, and then they'll probably go to commercial and all that crap. What? Any quick thoughts on Nashville?
sure.
Well,
I mean, I thought Auburn did what they needed to do against Ole Miss. Look, anytime you're playing a team, it's a quality opponent, right? And Ole Miss is that, and they have a very quality head coach. Somebody that I think I've referred to on this show as one of the top 10 basketball coaches in all of college basketball right now, and I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
When you're playing them for the third time, and they played the day before, so they're loose. They know the rims there in Nashville. They understand the way the game's being called. You're playing to a disadvantage. And Auburn is the more talented ball club. And credit Ole Miss for having a good game plan in that game. But Auburn did what it needed to do. They were just physically bigger in the post. Auburn took advantage of that. Janai Broome had a phenomenal game. And so you added it. I think that was the 16th quad one win to pad Auburn's resume as you move into the tournament. And then obviously against Tennessee, they just fell a little bit short. I think free throw shooting was not where Bruce or the team would have wanted it to be. Credit Tennessee for making plays when they needed to. They played their brand of basketball and did it extremely well. But I felt like Auburn could have played better. They left some things out there on the court. I think this team knows that. And I think they know now that they have to mentally focus, raise their level of play as they move into the tournament. They're going to be more rested than they have been, Justin.
Yeah.
Probably in the better part of a month, as healthy as they have been. So you're probably going to see Auburn at its best, I would think, as you move into the opening round of 64, excuse me. But here we go, man. I mean, it's about to be selection time, and we'll see if Auburn is going to be the number one seed. I think that's what we anticipate. But you don't truly know until it happens, right?
Yeah, and they just show's getting started. They just played a clip of Greg Gumbel talking about the NCAA tournament and kind of dedicated the show obviously to Greg Gumbel, and that was pretty touchy. It's odd not seeing Greg Gumbel. Anybody who grows up watching the show and the tournament every year,
sure.
but watching the selection show their whole life, it's weird not seeing Greg Gumbel out there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm okay. They wanted to win in Nashville. They wanted to hold that trophy up. They got the win on Friday, which I thought was the one that they needed to win. I thought you can't lose that one. I thought that would have been a red flag. They won that game. And yeah, the Tennessee game, they're just kicking themselves on that one. I mean, that was Tennessee's really good. I mean, they're really good. But Auburn should have won. Auburn's a better team than Tennessee. I think Auburn's a better team than Tennessee. I mean, you look at Auburn made more field goals in that game. They had less turnovers. They had more assists. You can't foul. You cannot foul that many times. I mean, you can't be minus 12 from the free throw line against a team that's as good as Tennessee or Florida or Houston or Duke or Alabama or whoever else you're in the NCAA tournament, whatever. Auburn's number one right off the bat. So there you go. They wasted 0 seconds doing that. So
as expected.
real quick. Let me post that real quick, and I'll get the link as we go. So Auburn's number one, obviously in Lexington. Those are Thursday, Saturday games. Let me post this real quick.
No, for sure. And I understand other fan bases' argument about who should be number one. I get it wholeheartedly. But when you look at the full resume of everything that Auburn was able to accomplish this season, it
They're
would
going to
be
play.
yeah.
Sorry, Alabama State St. Francis winner is who Auburn's going to get. Alabama State St. Francis winner. Ooh, is who they're going to get in that 16th seed Lexington, and they're going right into it. The 8-9 game. Louisville is the 8 seed.
Okay.
And Creighton is the 9 seed. So, of course, Creighton at one point was like top 15. I mean, that's a really good team. It's a hell of an 8-9 pull. I mean, Creighton's good. By the way, Creighton's got assistant Ryan Miller, who was at Auburn under Tony Barbie, Mike Miller's brother. And so that'd be interesting. Then, of course, Louisville, upstart Louisville. I think they have the biggest turnaround, one of the biggest turnarounds in ACC history from last year. I mean, you're talking 15 plus. I don't know what their record was last year, but it's like 15 plus win difference. It's a huge difference.
It was bad last year.
What's their coach's name?
Give me just a minute.
I can't remember.
I think it is Pat Kelsey, but
They're a lot of energy with Louisville. Now Louisville didn't. You have to go back and look. Like Ole Miss went to Louisville and boat raced them. So but listen, once you get past the first game, all bets are off. Let me post this on the board real quick.
Yes, it is Pat Kelsey, formerly of Winthrop.
Energetic guy.
For sure.
Let me post this. Michigan's the 5 seed playing UC San Diego, the 12.
Okay.
A&M is in Auburn's region. They're the 4 seed. They're going to play Yale, the 3rd. They put Yale in the South. Now, listen, Yale would have to Yale would have to win 2 games. But boy, you want to talk about some Pearl and them like, please give us into Yale again. I mean, maybe not, but like that would be pretty funny.
No, well, that would be great to see Yale make it to a Sweet 16 and for Auburn to get that matchup again.
Ole Miss is in their region. So you talk about the strength of the SEC, and we alluded to this about the amount of teams. So you've already got Texas A&M and Ole Miss in Auburn's region. Like but they wouldn't have to face them till at least the Sweet 16. Ole Miss is the 6th seed playing San Diego State, the 11, or North Carolina. So North Carolina's a play-in at 11.
Okay. Okay.
Iowa State's the 3. So Iowa State, who Auburn's already beaten, is the 3, playing Lipscomb the 14. Marquette is the 7. They'll face New Mexico as the 10. And let's see who the 2 is. St. John's, Michigan State.
I'm thinking Michigan State.
Let's see who we get. Michigan State's the 2.
Yep.
And whatever the 15. So, as far as Auburn concerned, you potentially could have Alabama State in your first game. You get the play in. Louisville, Creighton is your 8-9.
Yeah.
And I'll pop on here in just a second. We'll maybe look at some Louisville Creighton stats. But yeah, the 2 is Michigan State. The 3 is Iowa State. The 4 was Texas A&M. The 5 was Michigan. The 6 was Ole Miss. Ole Miss, you've beaten them. You've beaten them a couple times. Michigan State is obviously – it's crazy. The 2 teams with the most quad 1 wins are Auburn and Michigan State. Michigan State's got 14 quad 1 wins.
I know.
And they're in the same region. Obviously, you think ahead. You don't want Texas A&M, but that wouldn't be still Sweet 16. Michigan, Trey Donaldson, could you face them in the Sweet 16? Trey Donaldson, that would be interesting.
Yeah, some interesting storylines for Auburn in that bracket for sure.
Of course, they're talking about Louisville making the ACC tournament championship, obviously falling short to Duke. I mean, Iowa State, you played them. Iowa State, though, I don't know if they had some injuries. They lost a few too many games, but that's still a team that you already played and it has played you to the wire.
Yeah, they're dangerous.
And Michigan State. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough no matter what. It don't matter what region you're going to be in.
No, and this is when you and I were talking, I guess, a couple weeks back now, how difficult it is to make the Final Four. Look at some of the teams in that bracket. And yes, you have beaten Ole Miss 3 straight times. You also got beat by Texas A&M in their house, and that's the 5 seed. No, excuse me, the 4 seed in your bracket. Michigan State, quality opponent. Michigan, quality opponent. I mean, it's not going to be an easy road for Auburn any which way you slice it once you make it into the round of 32. I mean, and this is not me trying to in any way, slight Alabama State or St. Francis, but I don't imagine Auburn to have much of an issue in that game. But from round of 32 on, Auburn's going to have to play its best basketball to make sure it's survive and advance each and every game, because I assure you that Louisville is going to come into that game thinking that they can absolutely win it. They'll play with a lot of confidence. Pat Kelsey's a very good basketball coach. And then whoever you get, obviously in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, when you talk about the caliber of clubs that we just talked about, and then think about the coaches that are there. Tom Izzo at Michigan State, the Hall of Famer. Chris Beard at Ole Miss. We just talked about it. Buzz at Texas A&M. Juwan Howard at Michigan. It's still Juwan, isn't it?
Where at?
At Michigan.
No, Dusty May's first season.
That's right. It's Dusty May's first season. I'm sorry.
So you got by the way, the Big Ten, Michigan just won the Big Ten tournament.
Yes.
So you've got a Big Ten tournament champion in your region. You've got the Big Ten regular season champ in your region. You've got Texas A&M who beat you in your region. You got Iowa State who you played in Maui. You got, of course, the Trey Donaldson storyline.
So in that bracket, you've got a coach that's won a national championship in Tom Izzo. And then you've got 3 that have made Final Fours in Chris Beard, Bruce Pearl, and Dusty May, because he made it with Florida Atlantic that year. That's insane, man. I mean, that is a deep and talented run of coaches there. And it always is, you know what I mean? Like you talked about, it's going to be competitive regardless what bracket you're in. But that's a who's list of coaches in that group, man.
Add to this story real quick. I mean, it's crazy. Let's see. Michigan State. Let's see here. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, it's pretty that's pretty crazy. I mean, you think about Trey Donaldson being in there, storyline, Yale being in there, storyline,
Sure.
A&M getting revenge for that game, storyline. And all that could happen by the Sweet 16. Not all that has to go all that far.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. All that can,
storylines.
for sure.
And then the other thing is, and I mentioned, I saw this mentioned the other day. The other thing with Louisville now, something to keep in mind with that. I don't Louisville's wild as an 8 seed. I mean, I know the ACC was down, but boy, they slid to be an 8 seed. That's a really good team. Louisville, an 8-9 with Louisville and Creighton. To me, both those teams are better than an 8-9. To me, both those teams are. I don't know, man. I just think those are better teams. Here's the other thing to remember now. You win, and if Louisville wins, you're playing Louisville in Lexington on Saturday. Now Houston's like, hey, we've been there. We had to play Auburn in Birmingham.
Correct.
And that mattered for a half, and then Houston was the better team. But boy, I bet you Bruce Pearl right now is smiling, going, "This is hilarious." Like, yep, we got the number 1 overall seed. We deserved it, and we still can't get. Houston wasn't the number 1 overall seed. Like, Auburn's the number 1 overall seed. Why are they playing a team like Louisville potentially in Lexington on a Saturday? And Louisville's, what is that, like an hour? An hour, man. Like, yeah, that's pretty crazy if the number 1 overall seed ends up having to play Louisville in Lexington, and you're going to have you will have more Louisville fans than Auburn. At like 100%.
You will, and it'll be a big game for Auburn. They're going to need to Now, look, Louisville is a good basketball team. I would not call them a great team, but they'll be up for that game. And you're right about having the home court advantage.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you shouldn't have to deal with as a number one overall seed. You should not be playing your second game an hour from the campus of the other team in a second round game.
And maybe they won't. Maybe San Diego State will handle business. You know what I mean?
Or Creighton.
Excuse me, Creighton. Maybe Creighton will handle business, and then you won't be. So it's, it hasn't happened just yet. But,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But it very well could. And if that's the case, Auburn is going to have to handle business the way Houston did with Auburn in Birmingham. They're going to need to play like the better team that they are. And I think if I remember correctly, Louisville lost earlier in the year to Ole Miss pretty handily.
Yeah, Ole Miss trounced them in at Louisville.
Yeah. And the ACC's been down. I mean, when North Carolina is a play-in team, it is a down year in that conference for sure. Typically, that's a blue blood and a perennial stakeholder for them as somebody who's going to be an 8 seed or better year in and year out. But that is not the case this season. I mean, I dare to say what the ACC is going to get 4 teams in, maybe 5.
Yeah. What's funny is you would think so Alabama State or St. Francis in the tournament, that will be the worst team Auburn's played all year.
I know.
Every team Auburn played in the season is higher rated in KenPom than what they're about to play in the NCAA tournament in the first round.
Which is absolutely
even
wild.
Some of their whatever non-conference games were higher rated than what they're about to play.
Right, the Vermont game.
It's bonkers. I mean, just some kudos. I was looking deeper into the numbers a little bit about this season. I mean, the number 2 KenPom strength of schedule. The non-conference schedule slipped a little bit because Iowa State slipped, North Carolina slipped, and Purdue's kind of slipped. Good season, but maybe a couple extra losses in there. Iowa State lost a couple more than you thought they would, but Ohio State and North Carolina should have been better than they were. By the way, Duke was the other number 1 seed. Alabama's a 2 seed in the East with Duke, so they're the 2 in Duke's region. Wisconsin's a 3. Bama could get Vanderbilt in the second round. Vanderbilt's a 10 seed, and St. Mary's is the 7.
I don't love that matchup for Alabama. I'm going to be honest, man.
Duke's the 1. Duke will get Mississippi State or Baylor as the 8-9. Oregon's a 5. Arizona's a 4. Boy, Arizona's good. Oregon's a dangerous 5, man. They beat Alabama early in the year. They had some
They slipped middle of the year where they went on a streak where they lost about 3 or 4 in a row. I mean, and that happens to a lot of good ball clubs. But I think they had some injuries and that they have started to rebound, or they've been on an uptick towards the end of the year. So that's going to be a dangerous matchup for who's ever in that 4 or 5 game.
I mean, just like the naked eye, Duke's region almost seems easier than Auburn's. I mean, Alabama at the 2. Alabama's better than Michigan State to me, but Michigan State's really good. I don't know. They're about even, but man, Mississippi State, Baylor, Louisville, Creighton. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's similar. Alabama playing Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's good, but Alabama's pretty much going to roll to the Sweet 16, I would think.
I would think so, too. The only thing I don't like about that matchup for Alabama is I think they've played twice already, and Alabama has won both. It is exceptionally hard to beat a team 3 times. We saw that against Ole Miss in the SEC tournament.
What if Auburn had to play Ole Miss 4 times?
Dude, that would be insane to have to beat a team 4 times in a row. And it could very well play out that way.
I don't know why Vanderbilt's a 10 seed. I mean, Vanderbilt had a good season, some really good wins, man. How do you beat Tennessee, Kentucky? You beat Missouri, right? Who'd they beat? I mean, Vanderbilt has some good wins. 10 seed seems wild.
I think they got pushed down for the slide at the end. They were on pace to go 9-9 or even 10-8 there for a little bit, and then they dropped 2 in a row, I think, there towards the end. And while they say that it doesn't happen, recency bias factors into a lot of these decisions more so often than they would ever let
Yeah.
you think.
Let's see. Creighton. Where's Creighton? Creighton's 37 in KenPom. Louisville. Where's Louisville? 23. I mean, so you're potentially playing a top 25 KenPom team in round 2. Louisville, pretty good offensive, and they're top 30 offense and defense. Creighton is top 50 in offense and defense. So Louisville, the metrics say Louisville's a little bit better team there. And you're right earlier about plenty of rest. I mean, Auburn obviously rested before the SEC tournament. You played 2 games. You were home. They didn't come home till Sunday, by the way, because of the storms. So they spent the night in Nashville, but rolled home. They'll have Sunday. They'll have Monday. They'll travel to Kentucky Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Because they'll probably do media walkthroughs Wednesday, and then the game is Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here.
But the good thing is that's a short flight to Kentucky. It's not like the trip they had to Seattle last year. So they'll be okay, even though they had to stay in Nashville an extra night.
The Alabama State potentially in the first round, look, Auburn will take care of business, but that is kind of interesting because you can imagine if Alabama State gets a chance to play Auburn in an in-state school, they're going to be as fired up as they can be.
Sure, they'll be inspired.
But that's one where, let's be real. Like from a matchup perspective, if Auburn handles with maturity and comes to the
sure.
What is going on right now? Come on,
and I think they will. I think I will be honest with you, and I'm not always this way because sometimes I think it's better for momentum for you to continue to win. But I think that was a humbling loss to Tennessee this past time. And I think Bruce will have their attention, and they realize now every game matters from this point moving forward. They can't not play their best game.
Yeah.
So I think that was if you could ever have a good loss, I think that's one that's got their attention and will have them focused and centered and ready to go. And they'll handle business against Alabama State like they should, or St. Francis, whoever falls into that matchup.
Yeah, sorry. All this yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Tennessee going back to that game real quick. You can't foul that much. It was a weird game where with about 16 minutes left, Auburn had a 5-point lead.
Yep.
And at that point, Auburn was +1 in free throws. So somehow, I don't know what changed. The last 16 minutes, all of a sudden, Auburn started fouling. And so Tennessee's entire margin at the free throw line happened in the last 16 minutes. And they turned a 5-point deficit into a 5-point win. So they're +10. And from that point, they were +13 on the free throw line. And it turns into a 10-point swing. And it was weird, man. 41-36, Auburn had the momentum. Zakai Ziegler had just gone to the bench. Houston's in number 1 seed. And I just thought, man, I was like, I literally was like, Auburn's got a real shot here to push this thing to 10. And the absolute reverse happens. It was foul, review, foul. Like these couple of things happened right there that completely halted Auburn's momentum. And then they started fouling. And so that was the biggest thing. Tahad and Chaney also, they can't score. They can't be, they can't not score off the bench. Tahad had a rough game on both ends of the floor. But both those guys can't go scoreless. If Chaney has a down game, fine. They can't both, and it just be all on your starting, have no bench scoring. The other thing is rewatching Gonzaga's the 8 and 9 game against so Houston will get either Gonzaga or Georgia. The other thing is rewatching, man, the last couple of minutes of that game, like Janai misses 2 chippies, and then Denver, Miles, and Chad all have threes that go in and out.
Yeah.
like right there. Janai has 2 missed free throws. I mean, so even with the free throws and the differential, dang, they had a couple of chances, multiple chances in the last couple of minutes that if a shot or 2 drops, they pull it out. So, I'm not overly concerned with the loss, just like I'm not overly concerned with losing to Alabama in overtime. I mean, let's take them for what it is. They lost to Alabama in overtime. They lose to Tennessee by basically 1 possession. So they just got to get back to just making more winning plays than losing plays. They lost Saturday, because they lost their head and they fouled too much. Stupid fouls, dumb, unnecessary fouls. That can't happen. The thing that's forgotten in that Yale loss last year, because the Chad Baker storyline is so prominent, Auburn committed 25 fouls in that game against Yale, and they were -6 at the free throw line. So NCAA games are officiated differently. Tournament games are officiated differently. It's going to be tighter.
Yes.
And it's been a talking point, and I think it's a legit one. The talent and the physicality of the SEC and the way it was officiated, teams are going to have to adjust. SEC teams are going to have to adjust quickly. You're not going to get away with the amount of physicality that would happen on a night in, night out basis in the SEC. So, like for Auburn, I don't know how you fix it, but you better. I would imagine the next few days it's going to be pounded into their head. Guard. Do not foul. Guard. And more importantly, no stupid stuff. Dude, if you foul in the backcourt, like I'm going to pull you. It's like you're going to commit fouls or reach in or what you're going to commit fouls. If you commit a foul in the backcourt on something stupid, that's what for sure has to be negated.
Sure.
But man, I don't know how you fix the dumb fouls and fouling too much at this point in the season. But they really got to limit that, man. They've got you can't just be sending a team to the line. Their defense is too good to watch a team just shoot free throws. Your defense is too good. You're doing what a disservice to your team to watch the other team shoot free throws, and you're like, we're not even getting a guard right now. And then I would say points alternative. Like you look at Ole Miss, half their points in the second half were off Auburn turnovers.
Yes.
Then you look at Tennessee, that they score 70. That's their lowest total in the last 3 weeks. Tennessee's offense has gotten better. So you hold them to their lowest total in the last 3 weeks. And 25 of the 70 come from the free throw line. You go back to Alabama, you hold them to 79 in regulation. Last 3 games, the defense I think has done their job. Offense did their job in Alabama. That was a good game. Offense, I did not think did their job against Tennessee. And then Ole Miss. Excuse me. I don't know. It's just kind of a grounded out game, but
to your point, I agree that the defense has communicated better. There was a slump there, particularly in the A&M game where Auburn got exposed some. And I think that was more of a lack of energy, and it basically had just poured out every bit of emotion against Kentucky. But there had been some lapses defensively where they hadn't communicated well, where they normally or earlier in the year had been really spot on. But you're right about the dumb fouls. And I hate to call players out in particular, but it feels like Dylan is good for a couple like questionable fouls. Like, why would you do that every game? Or Chad was kind of the culprit in this past week's game and this past game where he just was reaching in just a little too aggressively at times. Just use your length and stay in front of them. But I tell you what, Justin, the thing that bothered me some in that game is that I felt like Auburn got a little too content with the jump shot and the guards needed to specifically get to the cup a little bit more. They got comfortable dumping it into Janai, and that was partly by game plan. He's your best player. I understand that. But I think when you saw that Tennessee was willing to foul, they were just fouling Janai or our other post players, and we needed to get our guards to the line. If that was going to be what was going to happen, our guards are going to have to be more aggressive in the tournament. They're going to have to get downhill. And you talked about it being called differently, and it is. It is officiated very differently in the tournament. And because of that, our guards, Denver in particular, because he's capable of doing it, is going to need to be more aggressive at getting to the cup and getting fouled. He's so talented at the line, him and Chad both, that plays into their wheelhouse. They're just going to have to make sure they change their game a little bit and not fall in love with the jump shot. And I do think that they have to not let the ball get stuck with Janai. Now, he did a great job of passing out of double teams, but they need to reverse the ball a little bit more, use some more of those pin downs and flex cut action and get some other guys involved. I felt like it got a little stagnant with how they were running offense. So yes, defensively, they'll need to make sure that they make some changes. I think offensively as well, they need to do a better job of sharing the ball and getting a lot of other players involved. And it's not, I'm sure they called it that way, and it probably, Janai was what was working. So they kind of went to that. But I think Auburn's at its best, or this team's at its best, when a lot of different guys are scoring the basketball, not just one.
Yeah, and BP made a comment after the Tennessee game about maybe looking at the offense a little bit. It got a little Janai heavy.
Yeah.
In those two games. And Janai's going to get his no matter what. So it doesn't have to be come down, toss it to him in the post, everybody spread out.
Right.
You can run your stuff and he's still going to get his. But he is on a tear, by the way. I know he has 80 points and 30 rebounds in his last 3 games. In Nashville, he had 46 points and 22 rebounds. But yeah, it'll be getting the other guys involved a little bit might be a strategy for BP. So yeah, like I'm not concerned or worried about where this team is at. They lost a few games. Alabama could have gone either way. Tennessee could have gone either way. You lost them for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget the game in Auburn. I mean, if Miles doesn't hit a corner 3, you lose. So does that make anybody feel any different about that game? One shot, if Miles misses, you lose. It's like, oh, is there panic? No, he hits it and they win, and there's no panic. I mean, sometimes when you're playing that caliber of team, that's what we're talking about. A play here or there. And again, I go back to that Tennessee game. Go look at, man, Miles, Denver, Chad, their threes looked like they were in and out. Janai had a couple of chippies. He missed a couple of free throws. I mean, my gosh, just a couple of those go down and you win that game. Florida, by the way, is the number 1 seed in the West, so they get the final one. They actually get to play in Raleigh, but then they'll be I don't know where the regional finals are in for that. So Florida gets Florida boy ends up with 30 wins. They are UConn's the 8th seed. I'm
going to be honest with you, with the way Todd's coaching that team right now and the depth and the talent that they have, that is going to be a beat ass for one of the Hurley brothers, man, unfortunately. I don't see that being much of a game. I think UConn's a little overrated, to be honest. When I've watched them this year, I have not been impressed to this point.
Tennessee's also in Lexington, by the way. So they're the 2 seed, but they get to go to Lexington. I don't know where that means Alabama's going. So in Lexington, you're going to have Tennessee, Louisville, and Auburn.
Yeah, are they the 2 seed in Florida's bracket?
No. I was just looking back.
Okay.
Tennessee also gets to play in Lexington. Of teams that are going to be in Lexington if you're an Auburn fan going up.
Gotcha.
UConn and Oklahoma is the 8-9 for Florida. Memphis is a 5 seed. Maryland's a 4. And Florida's, good God, Florida would murder Memphis.
Yes.
Let's see who's the 2 seed they're going down. So Missouri's a 6. So again, like you've got at least, I haven't paid attention to every region so far, but so here you go: Missouri, Oklahoma, Florida, all in the same region. Auburn's got Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
Georgia's in the Houston.
So if you're going to Raleigh, the Raleigh regional, like Raleigh has Duke, Florida, and UConn. It's a pretty good. If you live in Raleigh, it's a pretty good couple of days of basketball.
Yeah, it really is.
Still bad on cold. Texas Tech's a 3 seed. in the West.
That surprises me. I would have thought they would have been a 4. But I mean, that's you're within range.
So I mean, the SEC is going to get 13 in. Who would be the third? Who was the 13th? Vanderbilt or Oklahoma? I mean, with Oklahoma getting in,
Oklahoma, yeah,
I mean, that guarantees it's 13. That's crazy.
yeah, and I think 13 will be. Is everything been announced now?
Nope. You got Kansas is the 7. Kansas, Arkansas is the 7-10 in the
Wow.
West. So that makes 4 SEC teams in the West: Florida, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas are all in the West. But Arkansas, Kansas, Arkansas, that's pretty good. Calipari, Bill Self. And then St. John's is the 2 seed. Now, that would be interesting. St. John's, I would like to see a St. John's, Florida matchup. St. John's is a beast defensively. And I was glad that they did not end up in Auburn. I mean, Michigan State's really good too, but St. John's is an animal on defense.
Yeah, they really are. But you think
St. John's,
about
Arkansas could be 40-40.
think about those coaching matchups. If you get a 1-2 in those 2 brackets, so
Well, they got yeah. You could have. I mean, second round, you're going to have Patino versus Bill Self or Patino versus Calipari.
I pray it is Calipari. There's no love lost between those 2. That would be a great matchup.
Are you saying they knew what they were doing there?
A little bit, little bit, Justin, little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't look. We could probably go through and split hairs on whose region's the easiest.
Sure.
Oh wait, did 14? Wait, 14 didn't get in.
Did somebody go into a play-in?
By the way, I just got a text from somebody on Auburn staff that I will not say who.
Okay.
That said exactly what we were saying. It said, "Congrats on number 1 overall. Now go play a road game." I told you.
Yeah, I figured as such. I figured
It's a fair point, man. You're number 1 overall means you should have every. I mean, they do an S. So for the people who don't know, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the number 1 overall will get the weakest 2, the weakest 4,
the
weakest 6,
the
weakest 8, on like that. So whatever. So hypothetically, you get the weakest 2 and on and on. But to put Louisville in Lexington, I mean, that's wrong. If Auburn's the number 1 overall, then they should not be playing a team that's an hour from their campus, potentially in the second round.
Sure.
And it for sure will be. I mean, Louisville basketball is a real deal. You don't think that they're going to bring 10,000 fans into that place if they can? Like, that will feel like a road game.
It absolutely will. Yeah.
I mean, that's. And I know Houston did it, but again, I'll also point out. I mean, what year was that? 20. What year was that?
2021?
23?
Was it 23 or 23? Yeah, because it was 23 because we beat Iowa that season. You beat Iowa in the opening round.
So who were? I don't know. I know the bracket. Let's see. Who was? I don't know. Was Alabama the number 1 overall? I think Alabama was the number 1 overall. Yep, because Alabama in the South. I think Alabama was the number 1 overall. So I don't think.
Yeah.
So I don't think Houston was the number 1 overall. So my point is just saying, when Houston had to play Auburn and Birmingham, that's a tough deal for a 1 seed, but you weren't the number 1 overall seed. So at that point, I think it's just kind of.
It is what it is.
It worked out. Not ideal. I get it if Kelvin Sampson's like, dang, dude, we're playing Auburn and Birmingham. That's a pretty. But Auburn's the number 1 overall seed. And I think something's got to come with that. And we'll see. Creighton could win, and this could all be nothing. But it's I do think that's a mistake in putting Louisville there. I mean, put Louisville, switch Louisville with another 8 seed. I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you. They could have found somebody else to put into that spot, but it is what it is now, and you're right.
Yeah.
And I do remember Kelvin Sampson making that comment. I can remember him, whatever opening round game they won, and then he's sitting there very stoically, and he's like, "Wait a minute, we got Auburn. Okay, so they're playing a home game. This is you know
Mhm.
what I mean. This is interesting."
But I mean, looking at it, like based on the way they seeded, okay, the other 8 9s are, let's see. Sorry, like the one I pulled up is like so Mississippi State's an 8. Well, they're going to avoid SEC round 2, so
Sure,
they're not
sure,
getting state. The other 8 was UConn. Do you want UConn? I don't want UConn. I don't care if they had a down year, no matter what. I mean,
right,
you take. I mean, I don't think you want to mess around with Dan Hurley and UConn. I mean, you just never know.
sure.
And then Gonzaga. Let's see, Gonzaga. Gonzaga is an 8. Now
That's an ideal
that's
draw.
a good 8. So I don't know. Do you put Gonzaga in Lexington and you have to send Louisville? So whatever. So maybe there's not Georgia's a 9. You're not going to play them. Oklahoma's a 9. You're not going to. That's another SEC.
Right.
So based on the way they had it seated, maybe they didn't have a choice.
I
But you
don't. I
never know
mean,
how it'll be a tough. It'll make it tougher if that's what ends up happening. But yeah, that's a tough break. Louisville's having an absolute resurgent year, and if they beat Creighton, how many Louisville fans are going to show up on Saturday to watch their team try to take out the number 1 overall seed? That 100% will be and feel like a road game.
it will.
Tough deal.
Yeah. Now the good thing is that Auburn gets an opportunity to play in that arena. You know, a couple of days before that one's going to happen. So you get an opportunity to get a feel for the rims and get a feel for the officiating, all that other good stuff. Now you're so much more physically talented than the team you're going to be matched up against. You're not going to be able to take much out of that game other than going out there and doing what you need to do. But you should at minimum be in rhythm. That should be a good thing. But like you talked about, the crowd can absolutely affect a game. I will be interested to see how many Auburn fans show. I think Auburn travels extremely well. Lexington is, that's a pretty decent drive for Auburn fans, particularly those out of the Atlanta area. But it'll be interesting, man. You're right. I mean, they have an opportunity to take over the gym for that game for sure.
I was trying to look. Louisville's interesting. Like their analytics are pretty good. I mean, there's nothing analytically that they do poorly. They've got a top 20 defense. They've got a top 30 offense. They have a top 20 2-point percentage offense.
Oh, wow. Texas made it in. I did not expect that.
Yeah, so saying somebody tweeted 14 in, but I missed where they got in.
Texas is an 11.
But they, look, Texas got 7 quad 1 wins. Like that's one of those where Texas, they won a lot of games, but it's also hard to look at Texas in all the losses. But when you're in the SEC this year, I think you needed to handle the SEC differently this year. And good for them for handling it differently and going, listen, the SEC was insane. So we can't look at this and go, well, they lost. Whatever, 6-12 in the league or whatever they went. It's not like normal. You just need to look at how many quality wins they had, 7 quad 1s.
No, and I will say this. I think it was pretty clear to the SEC for a while now that they needed to schedule better. And for at least like the last 4 to 5 years, the SEC has scheduled better. And this year was a premium year for the SEC in the out of conference schedule. And they absolutely dominated it. I mean, every club in the SEC had a big time out of conference win that helped buoy the conference and make it what it is right now. And so then when you move into conference play, you just had a bunch of like top 40 net teams playing each other every night. And in Auburn's case, the last week or so, you were playing top 10 net teams every time you lined up against somebody. So when you're all ranked similarly and you have those big out of conference wins against your other conference opponents, You know, I mean, your out of conference opponents, those teams that you need to get those victories again, you had to be rewarded at some level, or otherwise you're saying out of conference doesn't mean anything. Preseason tournaments don't mean anything. You're saying the body of work doesn't mean anything if you don't reward the SEC. So I'm with you. I'm glad to see that they did. I did not, when I saw North Carolina made it into a play-in, I thought that was Texas's spot. I didn't think both of those teams would get in. Just kind of looking at some of the brackets that I had seen as of late and kind of following Joe Lunardi, who may or may not be the most accurate, but it was interesting because I thought those two would cancel each other out. I thought one of the two would get in, but seeing both of them get in, it makes me wonder who got left out.
Yeah, I stopped watching. I don't know who people are griping about at the moment. I don't remember some of the last 4 outs and stuff. By the way, if you're LSU and South Carolina, how pathetic do you feel?
And
Like on one hand, you're like, listen, the league was insane. Like the league was insane. Unfortunately, we were the worst teams, and it was really hard to win games. And they wouldn't have gotten, if the league was easier, they still wouldn't have gotten in. They would have just won a few more games, but less teams would have gotten in. It's not like they would have made it in another year, but it's more just the fact that the SEC just got finished with the greatest regular season in the history of the conference in basketball, and put out one of the best seasons in the history of college basketball, period, for any conference. And LSU and South Carolina just aren't even a part of it. Like they're just not even a part of it. 14 teams are going, and LSU and South Carolina are like, really? Literally everybody's going. Everybody's going to the NCAA tournament except us. I mean, that's man, that's got to be some cold water in the face to those two programs. That, my gosh, like in a year where it was so good, but everybody's going except us. That's got to feel terrible.
I'm sure it does. And here's the thing: South Carolina was not terrible this year. Like
No.
they beat Clemson in the out of conference. Like what we were just talking about.
They had Florida, who everybody says is the title favorite. They had them down double digits.
Yes, had Auburn beat at one point. Like Auburn had to come back and win that game. So
yeah.
Look, it just.
And you're right, beat Clemson, who's a 5 seed. Louisville, by the way. It's funny about Louisville's schedule. I'm sitting here looking at Louisville's schedule. Louisville played 4 SEC teams. They played Tennessee at home. Tennessee beat them by 22. They played Oklahoma neutral. That was in the Bahamas. Oklahoma beat them by 5. They played Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss beat them by 23.
Oof.
They played Duke at home and lost by 11. I'd have to look at that a little bit closer and see if maybe, let's see. They hit 11 threes against Duke. They hit 11 threes. I guess that'll keep you in it. But, whatever. Look, and then they played Kentucky in Rupp and lost by 8. That was a really good game. But Kentucky doesn't play defense. We know that.
No.
And then they got into ACC play and won everything. So the ACC just sucked. So their only losses, they lost to 7 at Georgia Tech, and then they lost in the ACC title game. That's how. So for those keeping score at home, they went 0-4 in the SEC. Louisville did.
Yes.
And then lost 1 game in the regular season in the SEC and the ACC. It's almost hard to know how good. Like, are they good? Probably they're probably good. Their metrics are good, but you're like, how in the world do you compare those metrics? And you look at Louisville's metrics and go, oh, top 30 team, both offense and defense, and then you're like, yeah, but
who did they play? Right? You know what I mean? That is kind of the resounding.
It's hard to know. Clemson, they beat Clemson in the ACC semis. Good win. Clemson's good.
Yes.
That let's see, did they play them? They swept Clemson. So I mean that's far and away their claim to fame. They beat Clemson twice. Everybody else in the ACC is just The third best team in the AC. Well, the fourth you have Duke, Clemson, Louisville, and then the fourth best team is SMU, who's
Ooh, did they make
whatever
it? No,
in the future.
they were borderline. I didn't know if they were going to.
They did not make it.
Okay.
So there's you a team that did not make. So that shows you what they think of the ACC. So the fourth best team in the ACC did not even make the NCAA tournament.
Yep. And I think the fifth best team is North Carolina. Am I wrong on that? And they did
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
play-in.
yeah.
So they skipped
Net-wise.
this. Right.
So you're looking at the actual seed list. I'm looking at the actual 1 through 68. So Auburn played 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 13, 14. And of course, including that is multiple games against Tennessee, multiple games against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So Duke at 2, Houston 3, Florida 4, Tennessee 5, Bama 6, Iowa State 10, Kentucky 11, A&M 13, Purdue 14. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 of the top 13. 9 of the top 14 seeds Auburn played. And take Auburn out. So there's only 13 available to play of the top 14, and Auburn played 9 of them. Then you get to that. So we're at 9. Then you get to Memphis at 20. That's 10 of the top 20.
Mm-hmm.
Missouri's at 23. That's 11. Ole Miss is at 24. That's 12. So 12 of the top 24 teams Auburn played. And then you get down to Mississippi State at 32. That's 13. They played Georgia. That's 14. They played Oklahoma. That's 15. Arkansas is 16. Vanderbilt 17. Texas 18. North Carolina 19. So it looks like 19. Looks like Auburn played 19 games against NCAA tournament teams. No. 19 teams. Games would be
Yeah, you count your multiples.
20, 21, 22, 23, 24, I think. Because you were at 19 and you played add an extra one for Bama, that's 20.
Yep.
Add an extra one for Ole Miss, it's 21.
Yep.
Add an extra one for Georgia, that's 22.
Yep.
Add another one for Ole Miss is 23. Add another one for Tennessee is 24. So 24 games, NCAA tournament games, Auburn played 24 out of 33.
Not a bad conference, not a bad schedule.
That's my message if I'm Bruce Pearl to the team. Like I'm trying, like, you know, among other things, like don't foul as much.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm walking in there going, guys, like whatever, like there's nobody in America that is more prepared than you are for this tournament.
Right.
Nobody. You played 33 times you walked out on the court. 24 of those were against teams in this tournament. You've played Duke. You've literally played the other 3 number 1 seeds.
Yes.
You played them all. And
Yes.
then the next best two seeds. I mean, that's the message got to be, guys, like there's nobody more prepared than you. You know exactly what it's going to take. You know, from an effort standpoint, from a preparation, you know exactly what it takes to beat the best teams in the country because you've literally played them already.
Yep.
You've already played them. And you played a bunch of other teams that you could, you know, that are like those 8-9 games or might be like a Sweet 16 game. You've played all these games night in and night out. And so hopefully that's the message. Hopefully the message to these guys, just to make sure that their confidence is high, is that, you know, you're fully prepared. You know exactly what it's going to take. And so now lock in and prepare and get in the scouting reports and show me that you know what it's going to take. And I think it's going to be a big benefit to play this schedule. I mean, they've been ingrained to prepare for like a really big game for 4 months now. Like, there's been very few times where they've walked out there and gone, well, I mean, like, well, yeah, we'll kind of roll these guys. I mean, it hadn't been that way since November. Every single time they've walked out there, they're like, we got to be locked in. We got to play our A game or we could get beat tonight. So hopefully that carries in, and there's no flipping of the switch. There's no, there's none of that. Hopefully their preparation has just always been at such a high level that just rolls into the NCAA tournament, and they carry that intensity just like what it was in football years ago. Like there just should be a different, when you walk out there, man, you need to treat Louisville like you're playing Tennessee. Treat it like you're playing Florida. You do that, you're going to be fine. You go out there, though, and think that because you're the number one seed, that means something. That's certainly a quick way to lose quickly in the NCAA tournament. I don't know. All right, we'll come back and try to record maybe a short one before Thursday where we kind of dive in just a little bit on Louisville, Creighton, and Alabama State. We'll maybe go a little bit more on them.
Maybe we'll
and anything else.
Have some fun and pick a bracket. Maybe we'll do that too.
Yeah. That'd be good. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do a little bracket show.
Yeah, that would be fun.
All right. Well, sorry, the beginning of the show for anybody listening was a little chaotic, but it was good to just do it in real time. As Auburn's the number one overall seed, and now they get ready. But we'll pop off, listen to Bruce. I bet he doesn't say anything about the Louisville Lexington thing. You remember last year, he voiced his displeasure like right off the bat about having to go and to Spokane and win the tournament. And it wasn't like a part of that. That was also a part of the storyline of that loss was they complained a little bit like, what are we doing this for? Why are we winning the SEC tournament if you're going to send us to Spokane? We should have just not even played.
Right.
The thought was, did they bring some of those vibes into the game? I don't think that'll be the mentality now. I think if you listen to Bruce Pearl after the game on Tennessee, he's like, let us play. Give me the opponent swing scout and let's go. I think they're eager to prove that they haven't slipped. You know what I mean? That they're still a kind of a force to be reckoned with. So
agreed wholeheartedly.
All right, we'll come back in a few days and do a little NCAA tournament prep show, little bracket. We'll do all that good stuff. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Go to auburnlive.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn notifications, all that good stuff. For Alan Head, I'm Justin Hokanson. We'll see you guys next time.